Hi, welcome to the second part of the episode where I describe all the LEGO architecture sets. We have a lot to cover, so let's start. In 2016, LEGO architecture started giving us actually sets showing the skylines of cities, and they started with Venice. Why Venice? I don't know, but I think it was a good idea. What we have in this model, in this particular model, is the Rialto Bridge, the Basilica of San Marco. We have a campanile, a small San Marco plaza with columns, and a bridge of sides. The next set is another skyline, this time Berlin, in Germany, of course. What we have here is a small replica of Brandenburg Gate. Then the tallest tower is the TV Tower of Berlin. Then we have Deutsche Bahn Tower, the Black Building, a small column of Victory, and Reichstag. What's very interesting in this model is those tiny printed elements of Berlin Wall. The third panorama is, of course, New York, with some of its best-known buildings. The first one is One World Trade Center. I don't think it looks really particularly similar to the original, but it's the highest one, so I guess they had to put it in this model. The next one is a tiny Flatiron building. Then we have Chrysler Building, which I really would love to see in a much bigger scale. Empire State Building, which is portrayed here much better than in the first set of LEGO architecture, and a tiny Statue of Liberty. Now let's go back to buildings for a little while. This one is Buckingham Palace in London. This is where the Queen lives, and the snot technique here allowed for the maximum of details in this building. I think they look really good. What's really interesting is the fence that they've built, and they used a small window for the gate, and in front, in the plaza in the front, you can see a double-decker bus and a small black cab. This next building in LEGO architecture is the capital of the United States, and I think it's a really well executed building. What's really interesting is the snot elements, the snot bricks one by one used to show windows, actually put backwards. And the dome of the building is removable so that you can see the inside of the Capitol. Burj Khalifa, Dubai, United Arab Emirates. This model actually surpassed its predecessor. After 5 years, we get a really good LEGO architecture model. The use of hinges and snot techniques is really impressive. And finally, we get a model which represents the highest building in the world. Next stop, Sydney, Australia. So what's really nice about this model is the tiny Sydney Opera, which is really executed fantastically, even though it's a really small scale. What's really interesting is the use of monster teeth to achieve the sailing boats on the water. We also get the Sydney Harbour Bridge, Deutsche Bank building, and the highest building we get in this model is the Sydney Tower with golden dishes on top. This is the skyline of Chicago. As you can see, we could achieve beautiful buildings in a smaller scale, and this is especially for the Willis Tower and John Hancock Center. Both models were shown before in the first sets of LEGO architecture, and in this particular model they are executed really well. You can see the details of each and every facade. Besides this, a small silver ball represents the Cloudgate sculpture. We also have Du Sable Bridge, Wrigley Building, and Big Red Building. This next skyline is London. The first building we have in this set is the National Gallery with Nelson's Column and Trafalgar Square, of course. We get this in a much bigger version later on in the Lego architecture model. A tiny big Ben with printed clock on the front. Of course, the modern architecture here is represented by the London Eye. Then we have Tower Bridge. But where's the Buckingham Palace? Where's the Queen? Guggenheim Museum in New York. After 8 years, we finally got a model this building deserves. The designer of Lego has changed and the scale of the building is much bigger. And I think it really works for this model. The proportions are really phenomenal. The colors used here are really beautiful. The front of the building has a printed name of the building and you can see the tiny yellow caps in front of it. I think it's one of the most beautiful buildings of Lego architecture. Arc de Triomphe in Paris. It's a really well executed model of Lego architecture. It's not very big in scale, but you can see really interesting details. Underneath the arch, you have the Tomb of Unknown Soldier. You have the tiny micro figures which represent the statues of the building. The use of snot techniques throughout the whole building is really impressive, and on top the use of hinges to portray the rooftop is also really nice. Now this is a treat. This is Lego house in Billund, Denmark, designed by one of my favorite architects, Bjerke Ingels Group, and as you can see, this was designed by a real fan of Lego. I mean, the original building was designed by a real fan of Lego. You can see it in the structure of this building. Of course, the roof is removable and you can see the inside of the building. You can see the tree of creativity inside, just like in the original building. I think it's one of the most beautiful sets of Lego architecture due to its colors, the structure, the elements, and how it looks. This next skyline is Shanghai, actually the Pearl of Orient. What we have here is the tiny pagoda, the small temple, the buildings of the harbor, the Radisson Blu Hotel, the Oriental Pearl Tower. I'm not a big fan of this building in the real life, and here actually I don't like it either. Next one is Shanghai World Financial Center, and the tallest of all, Shanghai Tower, over 600 meters tall in real life. What I really like about this model is the use of technic elements which are tilted. We stay in China. This is the Great Wall of China. Well, not so great because it's really tiny and really small. In my opinion, it could have been 2 times wider. What I really like about this model is the use of hinges, which allows this wall to be really 3-dimensional and go along with the hills on which it's placed. This next Lego architecture model is, of course, the Statue of Liberty. I don't know if you know, but the original Statue of Liberty was built in Paris for 3 years and then transported by ships to New York. The designer of the statue is, of course, Gustav Eiffel, the same who designed the Eiffel Tower. The Lego designer in this model has really done its best. The whole statue is beautiful. The use of snot techniques. The material on the statue is really amazing and 3-dimensional. The neoclassical bottom of the statue is also really phenomenal in details. I think it's one of those models that you really have to have on your shelf at home. If you're going to San Francisco. So this model is also really interesting. You have a lot of buildings here. The tiny painted ladies, so those buildings in front of which everybody takes pictures of when they go to San Francisco. Besides this, we have the Transamerica Pyramid, this white pyramidal building. We have the Coit Tower, the Salesforce Tower, which uses snot techniques. Then we have the Alcatraz prison underneath the bridge, and of course the icon of San Francisco, which is the Golden Gate Bridge. Next stop, Paris. We have a few buildings which were shown earlier on in the previous LEGO architecture sets. We have the Eiffel Tower, which looks really good in this model. We have Louvre with a small pyramid, transparent pyramid. We also have the Arc de Triomphe. We have Grand Palace. The tall black building is Tour Montparnasse. We also have a little buildings and Champs-Élysées. What I would really like to see in this model as well, which is not shown here, is Centre Georges Pompidou. I think this would look really phenomenal in LEGO architecture set. This next model is of course Trafalgar Square, with the National Gallery, which is really beautiful here with details. This model is actually packed with details. You have of course two double-decker buses, you have black cabs, the symbol of London, you have beautiful fontanas, you have the Nelson column. What's really interesting is the use of 2x1 panels to build stairs. And when you turn this building around and open those small elements, inside you can see the gallery with tiny pictures inside. The third edition of Empire State Building in the LEGO architecture series. And I think this one is the most spectacular. What I really like about this model is the use of snot techniques and those grille elements which really show the Art Deco details. The top of the building, the top of the rock actually, is really beautifully executed. Of course, in front of the building you can see yellow cabs riding all around. I think this is one of the most beautiful buildings in LEGO architecture. The skyline of Las Vegas has a really dark history behind it. The first model was never released due to the fact that it portrayed one of the hotels from which the shooting took place. So it was halted and the model was replaced. The new hotel was introduced. And in this model, we have the fabulous Las Vegas sign. We have Hotel Bellagio, Luxor Hotel with a Sphinx in front of it. We have the Stratosphere Tower and the Fremont Street with LED screens on top of it. Now this is Tokyo. The skyline I was really waiting for because I'm a real fan of this city. So in this model, we have the Tokyo Tower, the white and red building. We also have the Cocoon Tower with those really interesting printed elements. We have a park in front of it with those cherry blossom trees during Sakura. We have Tokyo Skytree. We also have Shibuya Crossing with those tiny zebras and the neon buildings, and Tokyo Big Sight. It's a really beautiful set. So we're in Dubai once again. This time the skyline of the city. Of course, the tallest building of all, which is Burj Khalifa. The third Burj Khalifa in LEGO architecture set. But in this scale, it looks really, really interesting with the use of the transparent and gray elements. Besides this building, of course, we have Jumeirah Emirates, the two twin buildings. We have the Golden Dubai frame. We have a really interesting hotel, which is Burj Al Arab. And this hotel uses really advanced techniques of LEGO building. The last building in the LEGO architecture series is, of course, the White House, second edition. And I think this one looks much better. Finally, we get the right and the left wing, the east and the west wing of the building. Both of them are detachable, but we will not do that because this building looks really phenomenal with them. We have the garden in front, a small printed detail of the flag of the United States. And in my opinion, in this building, the President of the United States finally can live. And this last set I would like to tell you more about is the LEGO Architecture Studio. This set is packed with bricks. You get over 1,200 bricks, white and transparent only. And this set was designed to free your creativity. You get a really interesting book. Inside you will find a lot of architecture ideas. You will find a lot of beautiful buildings, really advanced building techniques to start with. This set is really mind-blowing. It helps you staying creative in the architecture world. I really recommend it, and I hope you can get it somewhere because it's really hard to get. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you liked this episode. I hope you like those Lego architecture sets and your mind is now full of ideas how to build architecture. Please click that subscribe button and comment if you want, and like the video, and see you next week. Bye!